You're not broke. That's the problem. If you were broke, you'd have no choice but to change. But you're not broke. You're just stuck. Comfortable enough to stay. Uncomfortable enough to know something is wrong. And that middle space, that is the most dangerous place a person can live financially. Because broke people know they need to move. Rich people have already moved. But you're standing in the doorway. 1 foot in the life you have. 1 foot in the life you keep telling yourself is coming. And every morning you wake up in that doorway, the cost of standing still goes up. You just don't see the bill yet. You checked your phone this morning before you even got out of bed. Not for anything important. Just to check. And somewhere between the notifications and the scroll, the day started. And you were already behind. Not behind on anything specific. Just behind. That feeling that sits in your chest before you've even had coffee. Like the life you're supposed to be living is somewhere slightly ahead of you. And no matter how fast you move, the gap stays the same. You know that feeling. You've known it for a while now. And here's the thing about that feeling. It is not random. It is not personality. It is not bad luck. It is the direct, measurable output of what you do between the moment you wake up and the moment you go to sleep. Every single day. Compounding. Quietly. Without asking your permission. This is about that. Think about the last 3 months of your life. Not the highlight reel. The actual texture of your days. You woke up when you had to, not when you wanted to. You ate what was convenient, not what was intentional. You spent money on things you can't quite remember now. And at the end of most nights, you sat in front of a screen until your eyes got heavy, and then you went to sleep, and then you woke up and did it again. And I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because you already know it. You've felt it. That low-grade awareness that your days are running you instead of you running your days. There's a subscription you forgot to cancel. Probably 2. Maybe 3. Not because you're careless, you're not careless, but because the companies that charge you designed it that way. They made cancellation inconvenient on purpose. They buried it in menus. They charged you on a random Tuesday so it wouldn't stand out. And every month, quietly, money left your account for something you haven't used in 4 months. You told yourself you'd start saving next month. Not this month. Next month, when things settle down. When the car thing is paid off. When the holiday season is over. When work slows down. And next month came, and the thing that was supposed to settle down didn't settle down, and saving got pushed again. And it's been 3 years of next month. 3 years. If someone stole 3 years of savings from you, you'd be furious. But when we do it to ourselves, we call it life. You've watched people around you buy things you pretend not to want. The newer car. The holiday photos from a place you had bookmarked. The house announcement. And you told yourself it doesn't bother you. Or you told yourself they must have debt. Or you told yourself you don't actually want that anyway. But there was a moment, just a moment where something in you felt the gap. And you closed the app or you looked away. And you carried that feeling into the rest of your day and called it something else. You opened a retirement calculator once. Maybe on your lunch break. Maybe late at night when the anxiety was quiet enough to look at directly. You put your age in. You put your savings in. You looked at the number it gave you. And then you closed it. Not because the number was fine. Because the number was the opposite of fine. And looking at it for too long felt like standing at the edge of something you weren't ready to face. And what's happening underneath all of this, what's really happening, is not a series of individual mistakes. It is a pattern. It is a daily pattern that is running in the background of your life like software you never chose to install. And that pattern is producing results. Every single day. Whether you look at them or not. The mild worry becomes persistent anxiety. The persistent anxiety becomes a low hum of quiet desperation. And eventually, if nothing changes, it becomes something you don't talk about. Something you carry alone. Because somewhere along the way, money became a source of shame, not just stress. And shame is the thing that keeps people stuck longer than anything else. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. This is not your fault. Not entirely. Not in the way you think. The financial system you were handed was not designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you functional. Functional enough to work. Functional enough to spend. Functional enough to keep the engine running. Your financial education, if you got one at all, was a brief, uncomfortable semester that taught you how to balance a checkbook and then handed you to a world of algorithmic advertising, one-click purchasing, and financial products engineered by people with PhDs in behavioral economics whose entire job was to understand your psychology better than you do. Nobody taught you this. And I don't mean that as a soft excuse. I mean it as a literal fact. The people who needed you to spend money invested heavily in understanding why you spend money. And you walked into that arena with no training. And then you blamed yourself when you lost. Lifestyle inflation didn't announce itself when it arrived. It never does. It crept in wearing the disguise of progress. You got a raise and your rent went up a little and the car got a little nicer and the restaurants got a little better and the holidays got a little longer. And each individual upgrade felt reasonable. Each one felt earned. But the sum total of all those upgrades quietly consumed every raise you ever got before you could convert it into anything that worked for you while you slept. And there's something even more insidious than that. There is the comfort of good enough. The dangerous, seductive piece of a life that is not bad enough to demand change. You're not in crisis. Your bills are mostly paid. You have a job. You have a phone and a roof and food in the fridge. And that baseline, that just above desperate baseline, is exactly comfortable enough to keep you from doing the uncomfortable thing that would actually change your trajectory. The people who transformed their financial lives did it in spite of circumstances that were just okay, not because their circumstances forced them to. And that distinction is enormous, because you're waiting for the pain to become unbearable. But the people who win don't wait for that. They respond to the low hum before it becomes the scream. You were too busy surviving to see the pattern. That is not weakness. That is what happens when the immediate always wins over the important. Every time you chose the easier path, the takeaway instead of the meal prep, the impulse purchase instead of the waiting period, the extra hour of TV instead of the thing you said you'd learn, you were not being lazy. You were being human. But the cost of being human without awareness is a life that happens to you rather than a life you construct. And what happens next is the part most people miss. There's a story about a man, we'll call him David, who made just over $200,000 a year for 11 years. 11 years. If you'd told anyone in his circle that David would arrive at 43 with less than $8,000 in savings, they would have laughed at you. David had the car. David had the apartment in the right part of the city. David had the vacations, the dinners, the wardrobe that signaled arrival. And he believed, genuinely believed, that the income would always expand to meet the spending. And for 11 years it did. And then it didn't. And 11 years of the appearance of wealth produced almost none of the actual thing. Because David had been playing a game he didn't understand. He was excellent at earning. He had never learned to keep. And on the other side of that, because there is always another side, there is a couple, teachers both of them, never earning more than $90,000 combined, who retired at 41. Not because of an inheritance. Not because of a lucky investment. Because 20 years ago they made one decision that most people in their income bracket considered extreme. They decided that how much they kept mattered more than how much they made. And they held that line. In the face of social pressure. In the face of their own desires. In the face of every force in modern life designed to pull money out of a person's hands. They held the line. And the line held them. Same economy. Completely different outcomes. And the gap between those two outcomes was not income. It was daily pattern. But here's what nobody tells you about money. The difference between those two stories is not discipline. It's not even habits exactly. It is identity. David did not see himself as someone who kept money. He saw himself as someone who had arrived, and arrival, in his mind, required spending that matched the image of arrival. The couple did not see themselves as deprived. They saw themselves as people for whom money was a tool, not a signal. And when money is a tool, you don't leave your tools lying around. You put them to work. And this is where everything you thought you knew breaks. You were taught that the path to financial security is income. Make more money. Get the promotion. Build the side hustle. And none of that is wrong. But it is radically incomplete. Because income without identity is a pipeline with no container. You can pour more water in all you want. If there's a hole at the bottom, the level never rises. The first principle that actually changes things, the one that sits underneath every other financial strategy, is this: your relationship with money is a mirror of your relationship with yourself. Every spending decision you make is a vote for a version of you. The you that needs to signal success to feel successful. The you that comforts discomfort with a purchase. The you that delays the hard thing with a reward that wasn't earned yet. And every saving decision is also a vote. For the you that trusts yourself enough to delay. For the you that believes future you deserves resources. For the you that has decided your financial life is worth protecting. Most people approach money as a willpower problem. If I could just stop spending. If I could just be more disciplined. And they try harder and they fall short and they feel worse about themselves. But it was never a willpower problem. Willpower is finite. Identity is not. When your identity shifts, when you stop being someone who struggles with money and become someone for whom financial care is just part of who you are, the decisions get easier. Not because life gets easier. Because you are no longer fighting yourself. The people who win financially are not fighting themselves. That's the quiet truth nobody talks about. The second principle: every dollar is a decision with a future attached to it. Most people experience spending as a single event. I bought this thing, it cost this much, transaction complete. But that is not what is actually happening. When you spend $1, you are not just trading money for a thing. You are trading a unit of your future's potential for a unit of present consumption. $1 invested at 30 might be $8 at 60. So the question is never really, can I afford this? The question is, what is this actually costing me? Not in guilt. Not in judgment. In the clear math of what that dollar could have become. This does not mean you stop enjoying your life. The couple who retired at 41 enjoyed their life. They went on holidays. They ate good food. They just made the decision consciously. They counted the cost in real terms, not just in the price tag. And some things were worth the cost. And some things, when you see them clearly, are not. The wealthy don't think about money the way you were taught. They don't ask, can I afford it? They ask, what does buying this cost me in freedom? That question changes everything. Because freedom suddenly has a price. And comfort suddenly has a price. And the latte and the subscription and the upgrade, they're all still available to you. But now you're buying them with your eyes open. And this is where it gets interesting. The third principle is the one that took David 11 years to learn. The gap is the thing. Wealth is not built in the earning. It is built in the gap between what you could spend and what you choose to spend. The size of that gap maintained consistently over time is the entire equation. Not the investment strategy. Not the side hustle. Not the stock picks. The gap. A modest income with a wide gap will outperform a large income with no gap every single time. Every time. And yet every force in modern consumer culture is designed to close your gap. The advertising is designed to close your gap. The social comparison is designed to close your gap. The financing options and the one-click purchasing and the emotional spending. All of it is aimed with extraordinary precision at your gap. Protecting the gap is not about being cheap. It is about being sovereign. It is the one financial move that is entirely within your control regardless of the economy, regardless of your income, regardless of the market. The gap is yours. And most people give it away without realizing it was theirs to keep. The fourth principle lands differently depending on where you are in your life. But it always lands. Your financial future is being decided by your 11 p.m. decisions. Not your 10 a.m. decisions, when you're sharp and intentional and the day is full of possibility. Your 11 p.m. decisions. When the willpower is gone. When the discipline is exhausted. When the version of you that had the plan this morning has given way to the version of you that just wants to feel something comfortable. The online cart you fill at midnight. The extra episode instead of the sleep that makes tomorrow's decisions better. The impulse purchase on the app that you justified with a discount. The architecture of your environment matters more than your intentions. The people who have solved this are not more disciplined at 11 p.m. They have made it harder to make bad decisions and easier to make good ones long before 11 p.m. arrives. The investment is automated. The credit card with the limit that enables damage is not in the wallet. The cart requires a waiting period. Not because they are stronger. Because they understand that the person who makes financial decisions at 11 p.m. is a different person than the one who made the plan in the morning. And they built their system for that person, not the morning version. Now here is the part that will be harder to hear. Your lifestyle is somebody else's marketing budget working exactly as intended. The brands you're loyal to, the upgrades you feel compelled to make, the standard of living you feel you need to maintain, these were not conclusions you arrived at independently. They were installed by advertising that understood your psychology, by social environments that normalized spending levels you adopted without examination, by a culture that measures arrival with possessions and confuses net worth with human worth. And you are paying that budget every month. Willingly. Enthusiastically sometimes. Because it doesn't feel like someone else's game. It feels like your life. And the cost of continuing on the current path, let's be direct about this, is not abstract. In 5 years, if nothing changes, the gap between where you are and where you could have been will be visible. In 10 years, it will be significant. In 20 years, it will be the defining financial fact of your life. Not because of one big mistake. Because of the daily pattern running quietly in the background. Producing results you didn't consciously choose. 5 years from now, you will wish you had started today. That is not inspiration. That is just math. Every person you look at who has real financial freedom, not the performance of it, the actual thing, made a choice at some point that you are standing in front of right now. Not a dramatic choice. Not a lucky break. A quiet, internal decision that their financial life was worth the discomfort of changing. That future them deserved the protection of present them being intentional. That the gap was worth protecting even when it cost something socially. Even when it felt like going against the current. Even when the people around them didn't understand. They made that choice. And then they made it again the next day. And the day after that. And you are one decision away from that being your story. So here is where you are. Not at the end of something. At a fork. One path is the one you're already on. It is familiar. It is not terrible. Some days it is genuinely comfortable. But in 5 years it looks like this. The same low hum of financial anxiety. A little more weight in it, because time has passed and the numbers have not moved. A little more expertise in avoiding the retirement calculator. A little more fluency in the reasons why this year wasn't the year either. The gap never widened. The pattern never changed. And you are still standing in that doorway. 1 foot in the life you have. 1 foot in the life you keep saying is coming. The other path is not a guarantee. It does not promise comfort. It begins with the most uncomfortable thing, which is looking at your financial life without the stories you've wrapped around it. Without the justifications. Without the comparisons that make you feel better. Just the numbers. Just the pattern. Just the honest accounting of where the money goes and why and what it's producing. And from that clarity, uncomfortable, necessary clarity, you build something different. Not overnight. Not dramatically. Just differently. The gap widens. The decisions change. And slowly, quietly, the daily pattern starts producing different results. Neither path is easy. One is familiar. That's the only real difference. So what do you actually want? Not what you're supposed to want. Not the answer that sounds responsible or ambitious or impressive. What do you actually want your financial life to feel like 5 years from now? And what would you have to stop lying to yourself about to get there? That question will sit with you if you let it. Nobody's coming to fix this. The system won't change on your behalf. The advertising won't stop. The social pressure won't ease. The pull toward comfort will always be there. It has always been there for everyone who ever changed their financial life. And they changed it anyway. The question isn't whether you can. It's whether you will.